April 24th, 2026. This is our way of handling the day's Democracy Now! Stories. We do not just repeat headlines, we hold on to the few facts that actually carry the weight of each story, then pull out the deeper lesson about power, institutions, and daily life. Story 1. Lebanon's ceasefire is being extended by 3 weeks, but the facts on the ground still look like war. Hezbollah is still outside the negotiations. Fire is still being exchanged. Israel still occupies part of southern Lebanon. And thousands gathered for the funeral of journalist Amal Khalil, who was killed after what appeared to be a targeted sequence of strikes that also trapped photographer Zainab Farah. The deeper lesson is that a ceasefire without inclusion, return, and safety is usually just controlled instability. It manages violence. It does not end it. Story 2. The Iran truce shows the same contradiction. Trump says the ceasefire continues, but the U.S. is still blockading Iranian ports. Iran is still seizing ships in Hormuz, and U.S. planners are reportedly preparing new options to hit civilian energy infrastructure if talks fail. The deeper truth is that commerce tells the truth faster than diplomacy does. If shipping lanes are still armed and infrastructure is still being priced as a target, the conflict is alive no matter what the public language says. Story 3. In Gaza and the West Bank, the word ceasefire is now being used over scenes that are still plainly shaped by killing. Children died in Gaza. Civil defense workers were torn apart in a strike on a car in Al-Maghazi. And in Nablus, 15-year-old Youssef Sam Asha was killed during an Israeli raid. The deeper lesson is that a ceasefire can become part of the camouflage. Once the label stays while the bodies keep falling, language itself starts doing political work for the violence. Story 4. The Senate vote to add another $70 billion for ICE and Border Patrol, the push to denaturalize hundreds of citizens, and the reported plan to send Afghan refugees to third countries all point in the same direction. Immigration policy is no longer just about entry. It is becoming a system for revoking belonging after the fact. The deeper truth is that once the state treats status as permanently reversible, citizenship starts acting less like a right and more like a conditional license. Story 5. The detention of Iranian PhD student Youssef Azizi makes that even clearer. He was reportedly taken after dropping off his children and then moved across multiple ICE jails. At the same time, 2 Iranian women in Los Angeles are still being held, even though the administration's public claim that they were related to Qasem Soleimani has been challenged by document review. The deeper lesson is that under pressure, the state often works by association first. It uses the headline before it secures the case. Story 6. The hunger and labor strike at the North Lake ICE facility in Michigan and the new ICE out legislation in Philadelphia show the two poles of the same system. Inside detention, people are refusing food and work to protest conditions. Outside, a city is trying to cut off local cooperation with immigration raids and data sharing. The deeper truth is that institutions become legible at their friction points. You learn what a system really is by watching what people inside it refuse and what people outside it try to block. Story 7. The acquittal of journalist Ahmed Shahab Eldin in Kuwait matters because he spent 52 days in prison for posting material that was already circulating publicly about a crashed U.S. fighter jet. The deeper lesson is that wartime censorship no longer depends on proving a story is false. Often it is enough that the story is inconvenient, badly timed, or embarrassing to power. The punishment is the process. Story 8. The arrest of the U.S. Special Operations soldier accused of making more than $400,000 betting on the ouster of Nicolas Maduro, along with the Pentagon contract now being touted by Eric Trump's robotics firm, points to the same larger reality. War, regime change, and national security are increasingly being treated as investment themes. The deeper truth is that once conflict becomes a trade, a contract, and a family opportunity, public purpose gets hollowed out from the inside. Story 9. Palantir calling for the military draft, Meta laying off 10% of its workforce while pushing harder into AI, and the Paramount-Skydance merger moving forward all belong in the same frame. Fewer workers, bigger platforms, more surveillance, more military integration. The deeper lesson is that technological consolidation is not just an economic story. It is about who gets to automate labor, shape perception, and supply the machinery of force all at once. Story 10. The ICC confirmation of murder charges against Rodrigo Duterte matters because it shows that impunity can harden for years and still eventually meet a legal record. The deeper truth is that accountability often looks weak right up until it becomes real. That matters because the public is constantly trained to think powerful people are untouchable. Sometimes they are. Sometimes the file just takes longer to close. Story 11. Cannabis being moved to Schedule 3 looks like a technical policy change, but it reveals something broader. The federal government can spend decades classifying a substance alongside heroin, and then quietly admit the classification no longer fits reality. The deeper lesson is that legal categories are often political artifacts, long after they stop being intellectually honest. Systems do not update when the facts change. They update when the cost of pretending gets too high. The through line today is simple. Systems under stress do not just become harsher, they become more openly conditional. Ceasefires become conditional, citizenship becomes conditional, journalism becomes conditional, even truth itself becomes conditional on whether it serves the institution holding power. That is the deeper story under today's headlines.